I never thought my life could change so dramatically on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The sun was shining, children were laughing, and the park was filled with the sweet scent of blooming jasmines. My two teenagers, Lucas and Sophia, were walking ahead of me, engrossed in their phones as usual. Sophia had just turned 16, and Lucas was 18, about to leave for college. I watched them with a mixture of pride and melancholy, reflecting on how quickly time had passed. "Mom, can we get ice cream?" Sophia asked, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture that reminded me so much of myself at her age. "Sure," I replied, reaching for my purse. "I'll wait here on this bench." As they walked toward the ice cream stand, I closed my eyes for a moment, enjoying the warmth of the sun on my face. 18 years of marriage to Ricardo had given me this life. A beautiful home, 2 wonderful children, and a sense of security I had always cherished. Or so I thought. When I opened my eyes, my heart stopped. Across the park, near the ornate fountain where Ricardo had proposed to me nearly 2 decades ago, stood my husband. But he wasn't alone. His arm was wrapped around a young woman's waist. She couldn't have been more than 25. Before I could process what I was seeing, he dropped to one knee. Time slowed to a crawl. I watched, frozen, as he presented her with a small box. Even from this distance, I could see it contained a ring far more extravagant than the modest one he had given me all those years ago. The woman squealed in delight, nodding enthusiastically as Ricardo slipped the ring onto her finger. My body moved of its own accord. I found myself walking toward them, my legs trembling with each step. Ricardo's back was to me as he stood and embraced his fiancée. My mind struggled to find the appropriate word for this stranger who was kissing my husband. "Ricardo!" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. He turned, and the color drained from his face. For a brief moment, I saw fear in his eyes, quickly replaced by something harder. Defiance, perhaps, or resolution. "Helena." He said my name flatly, without emotion. The young woman looked between us, confusion blooming on her perfect, wrinkle-free face. "Ricardo, who is this?" I wanted to scream, to cause a scene, to make everyone in the park witness what was happening. Instead, I remained eerily calm. "I'm his wife. We've been married for 18 years. Her eyes widened, and she took a step back, looking at Ricardo for explanation. "You said you were divorced." Ricardo's jaw tightened. "Helena, this is Julia. And yes, I told her we were divorced because that's what I've been planning. I just hadn't found the right time to tell you. The right time. As if there could ever be a right time to destroy someone's world." "Mom?" I heard Sophia's voice behind me. "What's going on?" I turned to see my children standing there, ice cream cones melting in their hands, their expressions a mixture of confusion and dawning horror. Ricardo at least had the decency to look ashamed then, but it lasted only a moment. He straightened his shoulders and looked at me with cold determination. "I'm sorry the children had to find out this way," he said, "but perhaps it's better to get everything out in the open." "Dad?" Lucas's voice cracked. "What the hell?" Ricardo turned to our son. "Lucas, I'll explain everything later. This isn't how I wanted you to find out." "Find out what?" Sophia demanded, tears welling in her eyes. I placed my hands on my children's shoulders, steadying myself as much as them. "Your father was just explaining why he's proposing to another woman while still married to me." Julia backed away further, twisting the ring on her finger. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know you were still married." "Julia, please wait," Ricardo called as she turned to leave. "I can explain." She shook her head and walked away quickly, leaving Ricardo standing there, his perfect moment shattered. He turned back to us, anger flashing in his eyes as if we were somehow responsible for his humiliation. "This is exactly why I didn't tell you. I knew you'd make a scene." "A scene?" I laughed, the sound hollow and sharp. "Is that what you call confronting my husband who's proposing to another woman in public?" Lucas stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. "How could you do this to Mom? To us?" Ricardo's expression softened as he looked at our son. "This isn't about your mother or you. This is about me needing something different in my life." "Something different?" I echoed. "Like a younger woman? I need someone who understands the life I want to build now," he said. his words cutting through me like knives. I needed a change, Helena. I've been suffocating. So divorce me first, I said. Or was that too inconvenient for your timeline? Ricardo sighed, looking at me with something akin to pity. I needed someone more aligned with where I'm going. Someone younger. Someone who gets the new direction of my life and business. Dad? Sophia sobbed. How could you say that? I'm just being honest, he replied. Your mother and I have grown apart. She's content with her routine, her book club, her charity work. I'm building something bigger. I stared at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. What exactly are you saying, Ricardo? He looked at me directly then, his gaze unwavering. I needed someone younger by my side. You don't fit into the life I want anymore, Helena. You're outdated. Outdated. The word hung in the air between us. 18 years of marriage, 2 children, countless memories, all dismissed with a single cruel word. I nodded slowly, a strange calm settling over me. I see. Kids, I'll call you later, Ricardo said, already turning away. We'll talk properly when things are calmer. I watched him walk away, his confident stride unchanged, as if he hadn't just demolished our family with a few sentences. Mom? Sophia's hand slipped into mine. What are we going to do? What were we going to do? A question I couldn't answer at that moment. But as I held my daughter's hand and felt my son's protective arm around my shoulders, something crystallized within me. A clarity I hadn't felt in years. We're going home, I said simply. That evening, I moved with purpose. While Lucas and Sophia sat stunned in the living room, I went through our house, our beautifully decorated home that Ricardo had barely spent time in these past few months. Now I understood why. I packed his clothes methodically, filling suitcases with expensive suits and the designer shoes he'd become so fond of recently. I gathered his toiletries, his watch collection, his golf clubs. Everything that belonged to him I placed by the front door. As I worked, memories flashed through my mind. Ricardo celebrating when his small transport company landed its first major contract, the pride in his eyes when Lucas won the state science fair, his laughter as he taught Sophia to ride a bike. Where had that man gone? Had he ever really existed? When I was finished, I went to my office and retrieved a box I had hidden months ago. A box containing information I had discovered about Ricardo's transport company. Information I had been too loyal, too trusting to confront him about. I placed this box inside our home, in the center of the living room, and waited. At precisely 9:47 p.m., headlights swept across our driveway. Lucas and Sophia had gone to their rooms, unable to bear the tension of waiting. I heard Ricardo's key in the lock, the sound jarring now, inappropriate. The door opened, but he couldn't enter. His suitcases blocked the way. "What the hell is this?" he called out. I didn't answer. I knew he would see them. His belongings packed and waiting, the symbolic end to our marriage. "Helena!" His voice was angry now. "What have you done?" I heard him moving the suitcases, cursing under his breath. Then he was in the doorway of the living room, his face flushed with anger. "Have you lost your mind?" he demanded. I gestured to the box sitting on our coffee table. "There's something you should see." Ricardo glanced at the box suspiciously. "What is this? Some kind of dramatic gesture?" "Open it," I said quietly. He approached cautiously, as if the box might contain a trap. In a way, it did. What Ricardo didn't know was that I had discovered something about his company months ago. Something that would change everything. As his hand reached for the lid of the box, I felt a strange mix of sadness and vindication. He had called me outdated. He was about to discover just how wrong he was. Ricardo lifted the lid off the box, his expression shifting from anger to confusion, then to unmistakable fear as he realized what he was looking at. "Where did you get these?" His voice was barely above a whisper. Inside the box were photographs, bank statements, contracts, and a USB drive. Evidence I had collected over the past 3 months after accidentally stumbling upon a discrepancy in our joint account. "Does it matter?" I asked, maintaining the same eerie calm I had felt in the park. "What matters is that I have them." Ricardo's face paled as he rifled through the documents. "Helena, you don't understand what you're looking at. This isn't what it seems." "Really?" Because it seems like you've been stealing from your own employees' pension fund to finance your expansion. I stood up, feeling a strange power I hadn't experienced in years. It seems like you've been falsifying shipping manifests. It seems like you've been lying to everyone, not just to me. His eyes darted around the room, calculating. That's what made Ricardo successful. His ability to assess a situation and find the angle that benefited him most. I used to admire that quality. This is business, Helena. Things you wouldn't understand. He closed the box and tried to regain his composure. This is exactly what I meant earlier. You're not equipped for the world I'm building. Julia understands ambition. Julia understands ambition? I laughed. Does she understand federal prosecution for fraud? Because that's what you're facing if these documents reach the authorities. His expression hardened. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? The man I loved would never cheat on his wife or steal from his employees. I don't know who you are anymore. He stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. Think very carefully about what you're doing, Helena. You'll destroy everything, not just me, but you and the kids too. Our lifestyle, our home, everything comes from my business. The business you built by stealing, I replied, refusing to back down. The children deserve better than a father who would risk their future for his own greed. Ricardo ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I had seen countless times during our marriage. Let's be reasonable. We can work this out. Like you were being reasonable when you proposed to another woman before divorcing your wife. His jaw tightened. That was a mistake in timing. A mistake in timing, I repeated, incredulous. Is that what you call it? Ricardo looked at me with renewed calculation in his eyes. I'll make you a deal. We'll have a clean divorce. I'll be generous. The house, substantial alimony, whatever you want. In return, you give me everything in this box and never speak of it again. I considered him for a moment. This man I had spent nearly 2 decades with. Had he always been this person? Or had success changed him so fundamentally? You think you can buy my silence? After what you did today? Be practical, Helena. What do you gain by exposing this? You'll be dragged through a public scandal. The children will suffer. The children are already suffering because their father betrayed their mother. Ricardo's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at me with renewed urgency. Julia's distraught. I need to go talk to her. Of course, I said with a bitter smile. Your new fiancé needs you. He hesitated, looking torn between dealing with me and rushing to Julia's side. Finally, he grabbed the box. I'm taking this. We'll discuss everything tomorrow when we're both calmer. I stepped forward and placed my hand on the box. No, you're not taking it. Helena, don't be difficult. That's not the only copy, Ricardo. I'm not stupid. His eyes widened slightly. What do you mean? I mean that everything in this box has been duplicated and stored securely. If anything happens to me, or if you try to strong-arm me in any way, those copies will find their way to the authorities. Ricardo stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. You've changed. No, I replied. I finally see clearly. Now get out of our house. Our house? This is still my house too. Not anymore. Check your name on the deed. I had it changed last month when I discovered your offshore accounts. This was a bluff. I hadn't actually changed anything yet. But Ricardo's expression told me he believed it. He had been so preoccupied with his double life that he hadn't been paying attention to the administrative details of our marriage. You can't do this, he sputtered. I already have. Now leave before I call the police and tell them you're trespassing. Ricardo's face contorted with anger. This isn't over, Helena. Oh, it's very much over. 18 years, over. Our marriage, over. He grabbed the box and strode toward the door, turning back for one final threat. You'll regret this. You have no idea what you're up against. After he left, I collapsed onto the sofa, my hands shaking uncontrollably now that the confrontation was over. The calm I had projected was just that. A projection. A performance I had rehearsed in my mind since discovering Ricardo's deception. Mom? Sophia's voice came from the stairway. Is he gone? I looked up to see both my children standing there, their faces drawn with worry. Yes, he's gone. Lucas sat beside me, his young face serious beyond his years. We heard everything. about Dad's company, about what he's been doing. My heart sank. I had hoped to shield them from the worst of it. I'm sorry you had to hear that. Sophia joined us on the couch. What happens now? Will Dad go to jail? I don't know, sweetheart. That depends on what he does next. Are you really going to turn him in? Lucas asked. I looked at my son, seeing the conflict in his eyes. Despite everything, Ricardo was still his father. I don't want to, but what he's doing is wrong, and people could get hurt. His employees, Sophia said quietly, the ones whose money he took. I nodded, surprised by her understanding. Yes, people who trusted him. Before I could say more, my phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered, putting it on speaker. Helena. Ricardo's voice was different now. Desperate, frightened. Someone broke into my car. The box is gone. What? When? Just now. I stopped for gas, and when I came back, the window was smashed, and the box was missing. What have you done? I didn't do anything, I said, genuinely confused. Why would I steal something I gave to you? Then who? Ricardo's voice rose in panic. Who else knows about this? That was the question that sent a chill down my spine. Who else knew about Ricardo's illegal activities? And more importantly, what would they do with the information now that they had it? I have to go, Ricardo said abruptly. But this isn't over, Helena. Whatever happens next is on you. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my children, all three of us wondering the same thing. What had I set in motion? Later that night, as Sophia and Lucas finally slept, I sat alone in the kitchen, turning my wedding ring in circles around my finger. My phone lit up with a text message from an unknown number. The box was just the beginning. Ricardo isn't the only one with secrets. Meet me tomorrow at noon, Café Margot. Come alone. I stared at the message, my heart racing. Who had sent this? What did they mean about Ricardo not being the only one with secrets? As I contemplated my response, a second message appeared. P.S. If you want to protect your children, you'll be there. Some secrets are more dangerous than others. My blood ran cold. Whoever had the box wasn't just after Ricardo. They were after me, too. I barely slept that night. The text messages played on a loop in my mind, each word more ominous with every repetition. If you want to protect your children, who would threaten my children? And why? By morning, I had made my decision. I woke the children early and told them they would be spending the day with their Aunt Maria, my sister who lived an hour outside the city. They protested, of course. Mom, we want to stay with you, Sophia insisted, her eyes reflecting the same stubbornness I often saw in the mirror. This isn't negotiable, I said, softening my tone. I need to handle some things and I need to know you're safe while I do it. Lucas, always perceptive, studied my face. This is about Dad, isn't it? About what was in that box. I hesitated. They deserved some truth, but not enough to frighten them. Yes, it's related to your father's situation, but it's nothing for you to worry about. After dropping them at Maria's, I drove to a small tech shop on the outskirts of town. Carlos, the owner, had been my student years ago when I taught computer science before giving up my career to support Ricardo's growing business. Mrs. Montero? He greeted me with a smile that faded when he saw my expression. What's wrong? I explained my situation. Not everything, but enough. I need a way to record a conversation without the other person knowing, and I need it by noon. Carlos nodded, asking no questions. He gave me what looked like an ordinary fountain pen. This records audio and has enough battery for 6 hours. The microphone is sensitive enough to pick up conversations across a table. And no one would suspect it's a recording device? It's actually a functioning pen, too. He demonstrated by writing on a notepad. Just in case, I'll be at the cafe across the street from Margot. I started to protest, but the determination in his eyes stopped me. It was comforting to know someone would be watching. Cafe Margot was busier than I expected for a weekday noon. I chose a table near the back, with a clear view of both the entrance and the emergency exit. At precisely 12, my phone buzzed with a text. Order a glass of water. Place it at the empty seat across from you. I did as instructed, and a minute later, a woman slid into the seat opposite me. She was perhaps 50, with sharp features and observant eyes that missed nothing. Her salt and pepper hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she wore a tailored suit that spoke of money and taste. "Helena Montero," she said, her voice low and measured. "You look exactly like your photographs." "You have me at a disadvantage," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You know who I am, but I don't know you." She smiled thinly. "My name is Elisa Vega. I worked for your husband for 15 years. Worked? Past tense? Until 6 months ago, when I was let go. Officially for budget cuts. Unofficially because I discovered the same things you did." She tapped her fingers against the table. "But I found more. Much more." I struggled to place her within Ricardo's company structure. "What was your position?" "Chief Financial Officer," she replied. "I built his accounting systems from the ground up. I know where every penny goes, including the ones that shouldn't exist." My mind raced. If she had been Ricardo's CFO, then she wouldn't just know about his financial misconduct. She would have been instrumental in executing it. "Why were you fired if you were helping him hide money?" Elisa's eyes flashed with anger. "I wasn't helping him. I discovered what he was doing and confronted him. Ricardo doesn't like to be confronted, as you've recently learned." She reached into her bag and produced a small tablet. "The contents of your box were illuminating, but incomplete." She turned the screen toward me, showing a complex diagram of shell companies and offshore accounts. "This is the full extent of Ricardo's operation. He's not just stealing from the employee pension fund. He's laundering money for some very dangerous people." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What kind of dangerous people?" "The kind who don't take kindly to attention from authorities," she said grimly. "The kind who might see you and your children as liabilities to be eliminated." My hand instinctively went to the pen in my pocket, ensuring it was recording. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm warning you," Elisa corrected. "Ricardo got in over his head. When I discovered what was happening, I tried to stop it. That's when he fired me and threatened to frame me for the entire scheme if I went to the authorities. So why come to me now? Why steal the box from his car?" Elisa looked surprised. "I didn't steal anything from Ricardo's car. I've been monitoring your house for weeks, waiting for the right moment to approach you. When I saw him leave with the box, I followed, hoping to intercept him. But when I arrived at the gas station, his car was already broken into and the box was gone." A chill ran through me. "Someone else knows. Someone else has been watching us." She nodded grimly. "Exactly. And given the contents of that box, I can think of only two possibilities. Either the authorities have it, or Ricardo's business partners do. Neither scenario ends well for your family." "What do you want from me?" I asked, cutting to the chase. "Alliance," she said simply. "I have more evidence against Ricardo, but I need someone the authorities will believe. As his wife, your testimony would be powerful. Together, we could bring him down before his associates realize how much trouble he's in. Like me. Like my children." "Precisely." I studied her face, searching for deception. "Why should I trust you? For all I know, you're still working with Ricardo." Elisa smiled, the expression never reaching her eyes. "A fair question. That's why I brought this." She slid a USB drive across the table. "Everything I have on Ricardo, including evidence that he's planning to leave the country with his new fiancée, abandoning you, your children, and all his legal problems." I stared at the small device. "How do I know what's on this is genuine?" "You were a computer science teacher before you married Ricardo. I'm sure you have the skills to verify its authenticity." She stood up. "Review the contents. If you decide to work with me, meet me tomorrow at the same time at the Botanical Gardens." As she turned to leave, I called after her. "Wait, those messages last night threatening my children. Was that you?" Elisa paused, her expression hardening. "No, but the fact that someone else is sending you threats only confirms what I've been telling you. You're in danger, Helena. We all are." After she left, I sat motionless, the USB drive heavy in my palm. Carlos appeared at my table minutes later, concern etched on his face. "Are you okay? Who was that woman?" I shook my head, still processing everything. "Someone who either wants to help me or destroy me. I'm not sure which yet." That night, after ensuring my children were safely asleep, I sat in my office with the USB drive connected to my laptop. What I found confirmed my worst fears and revealed secrets I never could have imagined. Ricardo wasn't just a thief. He was something far worse. And according to the last file on the drive, a scanned plane ticket in his and Julia's names, he was leaving the country in 3 days. As I stared at the evidence of my husband's betrayal, my phone buzzed with another message from an unknown number. You met with Elisa today. Bad move. She's not who she claims to be. Check the employee records of Ricardo's company. There has never been a CFO named Elisa Vega. My blood turned to ice as I realized I might have just handed additional ammunition to someone far more dangerous than I could have imagined. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I searched through Ricardo's company records. The mysterious texter was right. There was no Elisa Vega ever listed as CFO. The actual CFO for the last 12 years had been a man named Victor Mendez, who was still employed there. Who was this woman? And what game was she playing? I reviewed the USB drive again with newfound skepticism. The documents appeared legitimate: bank statements, transfer records, email exchanges, but now I questioned their authenticity. My phone buzzed again. Need proof? Check Ricardo's desk drawer at home, the one with the false bottom. You'll find his real ledger there. I stared at the message. How did this person know about Ricardo's secret drawer? I had only discovered it by accident 2 years ago when looking for a pen. Ricardo had been furious when he caught me near it, claiming it contained boring business documents. Going to his home office, I opened the bottom right drawer and pressed the hidden latch. Inside was a small red leather notebook containing handwritten notes, dates, and amounts. Far larger sums than I had ever imagined Ricardo dealing with. Names were recorded next to the figures, many unfamiliar except for one that appeared repeatedly. E.V. Elisa Vega? I photographed every page and returned it exactly as I had found it. If this was Ricardo's true ledger, it contained evidence of transactions that dwarfed the pension fund theft. These were millions, not thousands. I texted Carlos. Need your help again. Can you run background checks on 2 people? Elisa Vega and Victor Mendez. His reply was immediate. Send me whatever you have. I'll dig deep. By morning, Carlos had answers. He called rather than texted, his voice tight with urgency. You need to be careful, Mrs. Montero. This woman calling herself Elisa Vega? I can't find any record of her existence before 6 years ago. No birth certificate, no education records, nothing. What about Victor Mendez? That's even more interesting. His financial records show monthly payments from an offshore account linked to a shell company. The same company that appears in those documents you showed me yesterday. My mind raced. So Victor is involved in Ricardo's scheme? It looks that way, but there's more. I did some digging into the company Ricardo has been partnering with for international shipping, Mundial Logistics. On paper, they're legitimate, but they've been investigated multiple times for suspected ties to organized crime. The pieces were starting to fit together. Carlos, I need you to do one more thing for me. Can you find out if there's any connection between Mundial Logistics and Elisa Vega? I'll try, but Helena, you should go to the police with what you already have. Not yet, I said. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with first. After hanging up, I called my sister. Maria, can the kids stay with you another day? Of course, she replied. Is everything okay, Helena? No, I admitted, but I'm working on it. Just keep them close, okay? Don't let them go anywhere without you. My next call was to Ricardo himself. He answered on the first ring, his voice wary. Helena, we need to talk, I said, keeping my tone neutral. About the business, about Julia, about everything. I know about the plane tickets. I know you're planning to leave the country in 3 days. His sharp intake of breath confirmed the tickets were real. After a moment, he agreed to meet. Fine. My office. 1 hour. I arrived at his company headquarters with the recording pen in my pocket. Ricardo sat behind his massive desk, looking tired and anxious. I met someone interesting yesterday, I began casually. Elisa Vega. She claims to have been your CFO. The effect was immediate. Ricardo's face paled, and his hands gripped the edge of his desk. Where did you hear that name? She approached me directly. Gave me quite an interesting story about your business dealings. I watched his reaction carefully. The thing is, I can't find any record of her working here. Ricardo stood up abruptly, going to the door and locking it. When he turned back to me, his expression was grim. You need to stay away from that woman. She's dangerous. Who is she, Ricardo? Because she seemed to know a lot about your company. About us. He ran a hand through his hair, that familiar gesture of stress, and sighed heavily. Her real name isn't Elisa Vega. It's Elena Vasquez. And she never worked for me. She worked for Mundial Logistics. The shipping company you partner with? He laughed bitterly. Partner is a generous term. They approached me 5 years ago, offering exclusive contracts that seemed too good to be true. By the time I realized what they really wanted, a legitimate business to move their money through, I was already compromised. I felt a chill. Money laundering. At first, it was just small amounts. I told myself it was a necessary evil to keep the company growing. Then they wanted more. Bigger transfers, more complex arrangements. He looked at me, his eyes haunted. When I tried to back out, they threatened the children. My blood ran cold. What does this have to do with Elena? She's their enforcer. She makes sure their partners stay in line. He pulled up his sleeve, revealing an ugly scar I had never seen before. This was just a warning. She said next time it would be Lucas or Sophia. My mind raced. So the pension fund? I needed money to pay them off, to buy time while I figured out how to get us all safely away. Ricardo's voice broke. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate. And then Julia came along and I saw a way out. A new identity, a new life somewhere else. So proposing to her while still married to me, that was part of your escape plan? He had the decency to look ashamed. Julia's father has connections that could help protect us. The engagement was real, but so was the timing. I was going to tell you everything, get you and the kids to safety first, and then disappear. I wanted to believe him. After 18 years together, I wanted to think that somewhere inside this man was the Ricardo I had married. But the recording pen in my pocket reminded me to be cautious. How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know this isn't another manipulation? Ricardo reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a file. Because I can prove it. These are transcripts of conversations between Elena and her bosses. I've been gathering evidence against them for months. I took the file, scanning the pages. The conversations were chilling. Casual discussions about violence and intimidation, references to the Montero account, and keeping the wife in the dark. If what you're saying is true, I said slowly, then meeting with Elisa tomorrow would be walking into a trap. Ricardo's head snapped up. What? You're meeting her again? At the Botanical Gardens, tomorrow at noon. Helena, you can't go. My phone buzzed with a text. I checked it automatically, then felt my heart stop. It was from Maria. Someone just tried to take the kids from school. Said they were sent by you. School called me instead per your instructions. We're safe, but scared. What's happening? I showed Ricardo the message, watching all the color drain from his face. They know, he whispered. They know about the evidence I've been collecting. But as we rushed toward the door, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo message showing Maria and my children sitting on a couch, terrified expressions on their faces. A figure stood behind them, only partially visible in the frame. The message read, "Change of plans. Come to the old warehouse at the port. Bring all copies of the evidence. Come alone or they die. You have 1 hour." Ricardo and I stared at each other, the truth of our situation finally clear. Whatever games we had been playing with each other, whatever lies and betrayals had passed between us, none of it mattered now. Our children were in danger, and we had only one chance to save them. The drive to the port was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Ricardo sat beside me, frantically making calls to people he said might help us. Former military contacts, a friend in the federal police. None answered. "They've cut us off," he said, his voice hollow. "They're thorough." I gripped the steering wheel harder, forcing myself to focus on the road and not on the image of my terrified children. "Tell me everything about Elena. What are we walking into?" She's calculated, efficient, and completely remorseless, the kind of person who would threaten children without hesitation. He paused. But she also follows orders. She's not the one in charge. Then who is? A man named Mateo Diaz. He runs Mundial Logistics, but I've never met him face to face. I processed this information, trying to formulate a plan. What do they want with the evidence? Destroying it won't help them if we've already seen it. It's not just about the evidence, Ricardo said quietly. It's about loose ends. They can't risk us talking to authorities. He looked at me, his eyes filled with regret. I'm so sorry, Helena. I never meant for this to touch you or the children. The old warehouse loomed ahead. I parked the car out of sight and turned to Ricardo. We need a strategy. We can't just walk in there and hope they let us go. Ricardo nodded grimly. I have the original documents here. He patted his jacket pocket. But there's something they don't know. I've been working with a federal prosecutor, unofficially, feeding her information about Mundial's operations. Hope flared in my chest. Have you contacted her? I tried. She's not answering either. He ran a hand through his hair. But there's a failsafe. If I don't check in with a specific code by 6 p.m. today, she'll activate a team. The prosecutor knows about this warehouse. I checked my watch. 3:17 p.m. Almost 3 hours until help might arrive. If Ricardo was telling the truth. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Time's running out. Both of you, inside now. We're watching. So much for staying hidden. Together, I said. A statement, not a question. Ricardo nodded and we approached the warehouse's side door. It opened before we reached it, revealing Elena standing with a pistol pointed casually in our direction. Right on time, she said, her voice cold. Hands where I can see them. 2 men appeared, patting us down thoroughly. They took our phones and Ricardo's file, handing everything to Elena. Where are my children? I demanded. Elena gestured with her gun. Inside, move. The warehouse interior was dimly lit, with stacks of shipping containers creating a maze. We were led to a central area where Maria and the children sat huddled together, guarded by another armed man. Mom! Sophia cried out when she saw me. Stay seated, the guard warned, placing a hand on her shoulder. Lucas looked at his father with a mixture of confusion and betrayal. Dad, what's happening? Who are these people? It's complicated, son, Ricardo began, but Elena cut him off. Family reunion later. Business first. She turned to a figure in the shadows. They brought the evidence, sir. The man who stepped forward was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. He was perhaps 60, with silver hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to power. Ricardo, he greeted cordially. I'm disappointed. We had such a productive arrangement. You threatened my family, Ricardo replied, his voice tight. Diaz shrugged elegantly. Circumstances change. You became a risk. He turned to me. And you, Helena, the loyal wife who suddenly isn't so loyal anymore. I never agreed to any arrangement with you, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Let my children and my sister go. They have nothing to do with this. Unfortunately, they became involved the moment you decided to collect evidence against your husband's business partners. Diaz gestured to Elena, who handed him the file and our phones. Now, let's see what you've been gathering. As Diaz thumbed through the documents, I caught Ricardo's eye. He glanced subtly at his watch, then at the children. A silent message. Stall until 6 p.m. That's not everything, I said suddenly. Diaz looked up sharply. Explain. The evidence. What you're holding is incomplete. The complete files are secured elsewhere. If anything happens to us, they go straight to the authorities. The classic insurance policy, Diaz said, sounding almost amused. Where are the rest of the files? Safe, I replied. And they stay that way as long as you let my family go unharmed. Diaz studied me. You're bluffing. Try me. I met his gaze without flinching. Something shifted in Diaz's expression. A flicker of respect, perhaps. Ricardo, your wife is more formidable than you led me to believe. Outdated, I think you called her? The reminder stung, but I kept my focus. People underestimate me. That's their mistake. Diaz turned to Ricardo. Is she telling the truth about additional evidence? Ricardo looked at me, something like pride in his expression. My wife doesn't bluff. Diaz nodded slowly. Very well. A new negotiation then. You tell me where all copies of the evidence are located. We retrieve and destroy them together. In exchange, your family walks away unharmed. And your operation continues unchecked, I said. Business is business, Diaz replied with a shrug. What guarantee do we have that you'll keep your word? I asked. None, Diaz admitted frankly. Except that I'm a businessman, not a monster. Killing families creates unnecessary attention. Ricardo leaned forward. I have a counteroffer. You let my family go now. I stay. Once they're safe, I'll take you to all the evidence. Dad, no, Lucas protested. Diaz considered this. One child stays with us until the evidence is secured. As a guarantee. My heart froze. Absolutely not. Mom, Sophia said suddenly, her voice small but determined. I'll stay. No! I moved toward her, but Elena stepped between us. Diaz checked his watch. This negotiation is taking too long. Perhaps we need to demonstrate our seriousness. He nodded to the guard standing behind Maria. The man raised his gun. Wait, Ricardo shouted. Take me instead. Diaz raised a hand, and the guard lowered his weapon. We need the evidence and assurance of your family's silence. I noticed Ricardo checking his watch again. 4:30 p.m. Still too long. What if I can offer you something more valuable than Ricardo's company? I said. A new laundering operation, already established, with higher volume potential and fewer risks? Diaz looked intrigued. I'm listening. I have access to a technology investment fund through my former university connections. Clean companies, digital transactions, international reach. This was a complete fabrication, but I needed time. Interesting, Diaz said. But why would you offer this? Because I want my family safe more than I want you caught. I held his gaze. And because I'm practical. Business is business. Diaz studied me. You surprise me, Helena. Perhaps Ricardo was the one who was outdated, not you. So do we have a deal? My family goes free, and I help transition your operation. Mom, what are you doing? Lucas asked, horror in his voice. Saving your life, I replied without looking away from Diaz. Diaz stood up. I need to make a call. Elena, watch them. He walked away, speaking quietly into his phone. Ricardo leaned close to me. What are you doing? He whispered. Buying time, I murmured back. Keep checking your watch. Diaz returned. Your offer is intriguing, Helena, but I need proof before I release anyone. I'll need a computer to show you the fund structure. A laptop was brought. I began typing, creating elaborate but meaningless diagrams. Diaz stood behind me, watching over my shoulder. This fund manages investments across 17 countries, I explained, pulling terminology from half-remembered business reports. The beauty is the layering process. By the time the money reaches its destination, it's untraceable. As I continued, the guard by the door became tense, touching his earpiece and then whispering something to Elena. She frowned, then approached Diaz. Sir, we may have a situation outside, she said quietly. Diaz straightened. What kind of situation? Perimeter sensors detected movement. A distant crash interrupted her, followed by shouting. Diaz's expression hardened. Secure the hostages. Prepare to move. Ricardo caught my eye, a glimmer of hope in his expression. It was 5:47 p.m., close to his deadline. Either help had arrived, or we were about to face something worse. Get them up, Diaz ordered, his composed demeanor cracking for the first time. Move them to the back exit. Elena grabbed my arm while another guard hauled Ricardo to his feet. The man guarding my family gestured with his gun, forcing Maria, Lucas, and Sophia to stand. The evidence, Diaz demanded, turning to me. Where is it? All of it. Let my family leave first, I insisted, my voice steadier than I felt. Another crash echoed through the warehouse, closer this time. Shouting voices became more distinct. Diaz's eyes darted toward the sound, then back to me. We don't have time for negotiations. He pulled out his own gun and pointed it at Sophia. The evidence. Now. Ricardo lunged forward but was restrained by one of the guards. It's in a safe deposit box, he shouted. Key is in my wallet. The bank's on Alameda Street, box 447. Diaz nodded to one of his men, who removed Ricardo's wallet and checked inside, finding a small key. And the other copies? Diaz pressed. There's a USB drive hidden at our house, I added, hoping to keep Diaz focused on me rather than my family. Behind the loose tile in the master bathroom, third tile from the right of the shower. The commotion outside was growing louder. Shouts, the sound of breaking glass, what might have been gunshots in the distance. Diaz made a quick decision. Elena, take 2 men. Get the evidence. We'll hold the family here. Sir, we should all leave now, Elena argued. The police. Do as I say, Diaz snapped. I'm not leaving without ensuring our security. Elena hesitated only a moment before nodding. She selected 2 men and headed toward a side exit, taking Ricardo's wallet with her. The instant she disappeared from view, the main warehouse doors burst open with a deafening bang. Smoke filled the entrance, and figures in tactical gear swarmed in, weapons raised. Federal police, freeze, drop your weapons. Chaos erupted. Diaz grabbed Sofia, using her as a shield as he backed toward another exit. The guard holding Maria shoved her roughly to the floor, raising his gun toward the incoming officers. Mom! Lucas shouted, diving toward his aunt to protect her. Time seemed to slow. I saw the guard's finger tightening on the trigger, aimed in my son's direction. Without thinking, I threw myself forward, knocking into the guard's arm just as he fired. The shot went wide, hitting a shipping container instead. Ricardo took advantage of the distraction, breaking free from his captor's loosened grip and ramming into the man with all his strength. They fell to the ground, struggling for control of the weapon. Diaz, still holding Sofia, continued backing away. "Stay back, or she dies," he shouted at the advancing officers. I turned to him, meeting my daughter's terrified eyes. "Sofia, remember your self-defense class? What to do if someone grabs you from behind?" Understanding flashed across Sofia's face. In one swift motion, she stomped hard on Diaz's instep, then drove her elbow into his solar plexus. Surprised and in pain, his grip loosened enough for Sofia to twist away. The moment she was clear, 3 officers converged on Diaz, forcing him to the ground. Another team secured the remaining guards. Within minutes, the warehouse was under control. A woman in a suit approached us, badge in hand. "Helena Montero? I'm Ana Ferreira, federal prosecutor. Are you and your family all right?" I nodded numbly, gathering Sofia and Lucas in my arms while Maria leaned against me, all of us shaking with relief and residual fear. "Ricardo told me you might come," I said, looking around. "Where is he?" Anna's expression tightened. "Medical team is with him now." Cold dread washed over me. I hadn't seen what happened after Ricardo tackled the guard. "Is he?" "He's alive, but injured. Took a bullet protecting one of my officers." The children gasped. "Dad?" Lucas's voice cracked. "I want to see him." Anna nodded, leading us to where paramedics worked on Ricardo near the warehouse entrance. He lay on a stretcher, pale but conscious, a blood-soaked bandage on his shoulder. "You came," he said weakly when he saw us. "All of you." Sofia rushed to his side, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, why did you do all this? The company, that woman." Ricardo winced, partly from pain, partly from shame. "I made choices, bad ones, then more to try to fix them. I thought I could protect you all by keeping you in the dark." "And Julia?" I asked quietly, needing to know if anything he'd told me was true. He met my eyes, regret evident in his gaze. "She was part of the escape plan. Her father has connections that could have helped us disappear. The engagement was real, but expedient." "You couldn't just tell me the truth?" I asked, the hurt still fresh despite everything. "I was ashamed," he admitted. "And afraid you'd try to fix it, putting yourself in danger." A bitter smile crossed his lips. "Which is exactly what you did anyway." The paramedics indicated they needed to move him. As they lifted the stretcher, Ricardo reached for my hand. "What I said in the park about you being outdated, I was wrong, Helena. So wrong. You were always the strongest one of us." 6 months later, I sat in a different cafe watching people pass by on the street. So much had changed since that day at the warehouse. Ricardo had cooperated fully with the authorities, providing evidence that led to the arrest of dozens of Mundial logistics operatives across 3 countries. Mateo Diaz and Elena Vasquez were both facing lengthy prison sentences. Ricardo himself had negotiated a plea deal, 5 years instead of 20, in exchange for his testimony. The company was gone, sold off to pay restitution to the employees whose pension funds had been drained. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. Professor agreed to extend my thesis deadline. Dinner at 7 still okay? I smiled, typing back a quick affirmative. Lucas was thriving in his first year of university, studying international law with a focus on financial crimes. Sophia had just started her junior year of high school, joining the debate team and volunteering at a women's shelter. As for me, I had returned to teaching computer science, specializing in digital security. My classes were always full, and I'd recently been approached about writing a textbook. Life had found a new rhythm, different but satisfying. "Is this seat taken?" I looked up to see Maria smiling down at me. "All yours," I replied, gesturing to the chair opposite. She sat, placing a folder on the table between us. The divorce papers came through, all finalized. I nodded, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Ricardo and I had agreed that our marriage couldn't be salvaged, but we'd found a way to co-parent that worked for everyone. I visited him in prison monthly, sometimes with the children, sometimes alone. Our conversations had evolved into something I never expected. Honest, respectful, occasionally even warm. "How are you feeling?" Maria asked, studying my face. I considered the question carefully. "Free," I said finally. "Stronger than I knew I could be." Maria raised her coffee cup in a toast. "To new beginnings. And to finding out who we really are," I added, clinking my cup against hers. As we chatted about everyday things, Maria's new job, Sophia's upcoming debate tournament, the house repairs I'd finally gotten around to, my phone buzzed again. A text from Ricardo. "Children mentioned you're starting dating again. That's good, Helena. You deserve happiness." I put the phone away without responding. That conversation could wait for another day. For now, I was content in this moment, sipping coffee with my sister, making plans for the future, and embracing the woman I had discovered within myself, a woman who was anything but outdated. That night, as I prepared dinner for Lucas and Sophia, I found myself humming softly, moving with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. The doorbell rang, and I opened it to find both my children standing there, though they had keys. "We have something for you," Sophia announced, her eyes bright with excitement. Lucas held out a small wrapped package. "It's from both of us." Inside was a beautiful fountain pen, similar to the recording device Carlos had given me, but clearly expensive and engraved with my initials. "For your new book," Lucas explained. "We thought you'd need something special to sign the contract. And to remind you that words have power," Sophia added. "Yours especially." I gathered them both in my arms, overwhelmed with love and gratitude. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and our family's journey of healing was far from complete. But in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that we would be okay. Some things in life become outdated: relationships, expectations, versions of ourselves we outgrow. But the capacity to reinvent ourselves, to find strength in our deepest vulnerabilities, to build something new from the ruins of what was lost, that never grows old.